Hi Bala.
Hi, sir.
So cloud security poster demo you are giving, right? Solution demo.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
So, hi, sir. Good evening. So, today my demo is on Microsoft Defender for Cloud and Cloud Security Poster and different ways to secure our cloud environments. So, first of all, let's start with Defender for Cloud. So, what is Defender for Cloud? And today, before going to Defender for Cloud, our agenda is we'll be discussing about the different Defender for Cloud and different ways to secure the cloud environment, such as cloud security posture management, threat protection, vulnerability management, how incident response and investigation works, how the compliance and governance works in a cloud environment, and integration, how we integrate and automate the cloud security of resources, and we'll be seeing how we can use Defender for Cloud to secure our hybrid and multi-cloud protection, such as use this Defender for Cloud to secure our on-premises environment as well as AWS GCP environments as well. So let's jump into the introduction for Defender for Cloud. So what is Defender for Cloud? Defender for Cloud is a cloud native application and protection platform, which is made up of security measures and practices that are designed to protect the cloud-based applications from various threats and vulnerabilities. And it has combined capabilities of DevSecOps, CSPM, and CWPP. What is DevSecOps? DevSecOps is it's a combination of development, security, and operations. So usually we are aware of DevOps practices in agility, wherein the production and deployment and operations go within hand in hand. Whereas DevSecOps comes into the picture, wherein security also joins the DevOps process, so that we don't miss on security. Never compromises on security of the resources. Now, cloud security posture management is a solution that surfaces the action that you can take to prevent the breaches. So it's like a preactive approach rather than a reactive. It's a proactive approach. And cloud workload protection is like workload protection platform. It specifies all the specific resources such as servers, container storage, databases, and all the workloads which are present in like infra resources rather than passive resources. Now, uh, well, moving into other slides, security. How would we secure the cloud applications? When developer cloud enhances the security practices in the software development by using it provides all the vulnerabilities within the pipelines and providing development into security posters. It also offers CSPM and CWP capabilities, which we can manage all the security threats as a proactive approach rather than reactive approach. So basically, the proactive approach is kind of thing wherein it gives a head of threats and vulnerabilities rather than after the issue has been happened. It states that when it gives there are these kind of because of these vulnerabilities in your code or else in your resource or else like in your pipeline, the attacker can attack like this. So Defender for Cloud has this capability to surface all these vulnerabilities into one platform. So we can achieve this in different ways. That is, one is cloud security posture management, one is threat protection, one is vulnerability management. So later on, incident and response, then compliance comes into place, and then we can automate using Azure policies, Azure blueprints, and everything. So let's discuss one on one with the um, everything. So now let's go to cloud security posture management. What is CSPM? CSPM is the set of tools and practices that are designed to improve the security of the cloud environments in the Azure. It continuously monitors, identifies, and address. It does all the capabilities, it monitors, identify, and it gives the status of security risks across the cloud resources. And how can we do that? So basically, when we are mentioning that it monitors, identifies, and addresses, so it is the resource which gives all the capabilities, so that we can make sure that our cloud environment or else our cloud resources are mostly it can be vulnerable from attackers and everything. Now, how to use that? So first thing is we need to enable Azure Security Center. This is an built-in tool for CSPM, which helps to monitor the security posture and provide the recommendations, which I'll show you in the later parts of the slide. What are all the things and everything, and configure the security policies. What is the meaning of security policies? Let's say, we will define the security policies that applies to our environment. These policies set the standards for security, such as requiring encryption. For example, let's say we are deploying a VM as a resource. So we need to define few security some set of policies. The disk VM has to be encrypted, either using Microsoft managed keys or customer managed keys kind of thing. And the 3389 port, if it's a Windows VM, that is a 3389 port, that should not be accessible publicly. Either we need to use Bastion, either we need to use VPN, or else we need to access. We need to find a ways to secure the 3389 port while accessing. If it's a Windows, when it's come to Linux, that comes to 22 port. We always need to. And the security policy, for example, always use domain-based authentication rather than local authentication for VMs, kind of thing. So these are the basic security policies which we need to configure by using CSPU, and continuous monitoring as well. Security Center, as said earlier, it continuously monitors resources against the defined policies. Let's say I have configured a default policy, for example, tag policy, for example. I have configured a policy on a management group or else a subscription level group stating that any resource while I have deployed, it should have tags to be integrated. For example, who has created the tag when it has been created? This kind of tag policy, I have enforced the tag policy on a particular all the subscription level. Then, whenever, let's say, if I'm creating a resource, if I'm not integrating the tag, it is against to the policy. And these kind of things, when the policy is getting violated, the CSPM alerts are stating that these resources has been violating the policy. We need to fix that kind of thing. For example, let's say if we take a blind example as a storage account, we need to restrict the storage account access to networks or specified networks rather than allowing publicly access to the storage networks, kind of thing. So these kind of policies we can enforce on a subscription level, on a resource level, so that our resources will be minimal vulnerable to the attackers. Now, because of this, it will continuously monitor, and it gives if there is any security policies violating, if any resources violating the security policies, then CSPM will identify and gives all the missed policies and everything. Now, it also has a security recommendations. What are security recommendations? So Azure Cloud environment has a default security recommendations. Whenever we are following those recommendations, we can ensure that fix and improve the security posture. Basically, it's like a score wherein it gives 50%, 60% kind of thing. So whenever we are deploying the resources, and the MDC will scan all the resources, and it give this is the score of your environment. Whenever we are fixing all the remediations, then the score will improve, and this will enhance the security of an environment, and this will implement the fix. And whenever if any resource is violating the policies or everything, then it reports to the compliance and everything. Now, below is a view of the security posture management. For example, we can see few of the recommendations here. One is enable MFA. Enable MFA in the sense we need to enable multi-factor authentication to log on to the resources, or it's like subscriptions kind of thing. But secure management port is one of the recommendation wherein we need to we need to secure the management port such as 3389, 3306, or it's 22 kind of thing, and apply system updates. So these are whenever we are fixing these resources, our security poster score will get increased. Let's say right now it is at 42%. Let's say if I'm enabling MFA, multi-factor authentication, and we can see unhealthy resources are 5 out of 6. That means that I have 6 resources wherein out of which only one resource I have enabled multi-factor authentication, and out of that 5 resources doesn't have multi-factor authentication enabled. Then we need to fix that so that our score increases by 13%. Then other things we can do is we can assign an owner who can work on this resource, and we can assign the when it can be completed, like when can we complete the status. So right now the status is on time, but here if you can see other things like overdue, that means that there was a grace period assigned to this recommendation, but however it has been passed, so that it went to overdue kind of thing. Now where shall we use let's observe use case for implementing CSP, cloud security posture management in Azure. First thing is protective sensitive data. Let's say a healthcare company, healthcare company needs to ensure that patient data is secure and compliant regulations with compliant regulations like HIPAA. So HIPAA is one of the standards which used for insurance, basically clinical and insurance data. So by using CSP, we can continue to monitor cloud environment for compliance. Let's say, for example, if I have a production, there is a healthcare company and it has a production databases running on Azure. So how can we secure? By CSPM, it gives a few recommendations. For example, one of the main recommendations is like always use Azure ID authentication rather than local authentication for accessing the databases, and also set minimal permissions, read-write permissions for users. Also, there are few other things like we need to use selected units, either completely disable public network to access databases kind of thing. Now securing remote forces, like let's say there is a tech company which large remote workforce use multiple cloud services, in the sense like there are when company comes to resources, few companies use their databases in one cloud like Azure. Few companies uses resources from AWS, like they keep their servers in AWS, they keep the databases in Azure. When it comes into that place, CSPM helps to monitor, manage security across all the cloud resources, ensuring that all the remote access points are secure and potential vulnerabilities are addressed. So potential vulnerabilities in the sense like if there are any vulnerabilities, let's say today we when Microsoft continuously scans and it gives vulnerability stating that every month they release a series common vulnerability exposures. So CSPM this MDC scans and gives all the potential vulnerabilities so that we can address before the attackers or hackers can exploit this. And other thing is preventing data breaches. Let's say there is an e-commerce platform accessing large volume of transactions, for example, Amazon, Flipkart, or else like we can take any of the e-commerce website which is accessing the there is a huge traffic. Within that huge traffic we cannot see there is which is a real traffic and which the attacker, how the attacker is coming. By implementing CSPM, they can monitor the environments with usual activities and ensure all the customer data is encrypted and quickly respond to any security alerts and prevent data breaches. Coming to security alerts, I'll explain in a later point of slides. And regulatory complaints, as mentioned in my about thing, we do have a different kind of regulatory complaints, like let's say banks or financial institutions uses PCI-DSS compliance, or else like healthcare institution uses HIPAA high trust compliance, and there are some users NIST compliance, few users ISO 27000 standard, few users ISO 9000 standards. When coming to CSPM, MDC has a unified solution wherein if we follow those standards, it gives the detailed report, very granular and detailed report and recommendations to maintain the improve the security posture. So these are the live use cases for implementing CSPM in Azure. Now, threat protection. What is threat protection? Basically, threat protection in Azure involves a set of tools are designed to protect the cloud resources from cyber threats, and this include detecting, preventing, and responding. Like respond, usually it says like respond, detect, prevent. That means like whenever, let's say if attacker, for example, let's take an attacker who is coming to attack on my public facing VM, like when public facing VM, if MDC, we have a Microsoft domain, I mean Microsoft Defender Cloud has it in place, then if there is an unusual traffic which is coming inflow on the 3389 port, then first of all it will detect and it will respond, and later on preventing is something we need to take. So just imagine, like if we have home security, like if there is any thief is entering into like our home, then if there is any alarms in place, then it will first detect, then it will respond, and it will it will alarm us. That's how it works. How how to use this threat protection? First, we need to enable Azure Defender, and later on we need to configure threat protection policies, what is the low level breach, what is high level breach, what is the medium level. There are default policies which are set, but however, we can configure custom level policies as well. And let's say if there are any alerts, security alerts triggered by Microsoft Defender for Cloud, we need to make sure that we are addressing those alerts on a very real priority basis based on criticality. There are four types of criticalities available, four types of levels are available. One is critical, one is high, one is medium, and one is low. So based upon the criticality, we need to address those alerts, uh, even though that might be a false positive or a true positive, but still we make sure that if there is an alert in Defender for Cloud, we should respond to those alerts. And we need to remediate if that is a false positive, then we need to remediate the alerts. And if that is a true positive which was detected by Defender for Cloud, then we need to make sure that we follow specified actions. Now, we also need to enable advanced threat protection service on all the resources to make sure that if there are any vulnerables, or it's like if attacker is getting attacked on a VMs, or it's like on an Azure environment, we make sure that if there is an advanced threat protection service in place, then our SIM tool alerts the relevant parties, and we get the alerts and we can work on it. For example, as mentioned above, we have the security alerts here. If you can see here, we have multiple high alerts. Let's say we log on to the Defender for Cloud environment, and if we click here on the right side, we see security alerts. We do have a lot of security alerts. So, for example, we have an alert stating that potential SQL brute force attack. Why it got triggered? First of all, we need to analyze on which resource it got alert, what is the type of attack. We do have a different types of attack: military attack, anomalous attack, potential dictionary attack, kind of thing. So we need to address why, what kind exactly kind of tactic it has been performed, and what kind of resource it performed, and why Defender for Cloud has treated this as an alert, whether it might be a false positive or also true positive kind of thing. So when we are alert, when we are identify these things, so we can make sure that these are not from these alerts are not from intruders based. We can analyze so that we make sure that our environment is basically secure. Now let's see what are the use cases of this this. So let's say we have a web app running on Azure. So the web app has a SQL database. So when, let's say, there are few attackers who use CSS, that is called a cross-site scripting or SQL injections to attack on a database. So if we are enabling this threat monitoring, and so that our MDC has a few machine learning algorithm, so that let's say if there is unusual traffic flowing onto this cloud environment, then it usually alerts all the relevant parties. So this is how we can use it. A securing database, because database will be critical for any organization where we store all the sensitive data. So we can use this to this threat monitoring. We can use it to like you know um, secure the database, protecting VMs. That is mainly we can do, because like if there is any VM which is being exposed by internet, this which is being accessible by the internet, so the attacker can attack on the VM. So like let's say if attacker is using dictionary attack to attack on the VM, so then the VM might get compromised and risk. Then Defender will alert the IT team, establishing response promptly and minimize the potential damage. Now, even let's say if the VM has been hit by the ransomware, or is like VM has been hit by any other software, like illegitimate softwares, then it will access the file patterns and it will trigger on high security alerts. So these are very few use cases we can use threat monitoring as well. So now vulnerability management. What is vulnerability management? Vulnerability management in Azure is the process of identifying, accessing, and mitigating all the security vulnerabilities in the cloud environment. So Identifying, accessing, and mitigating. What does that mean? Identifying, in the sense, it identifies what all the vulnerabilities available within the cloud environment. For example, let's concentrate on any one resource. For example, database. We have a like set of database, 510 database. Let's say if we are doing a vulnerability management on a databases, so it like Defender for Cloud will identify, assess what are all the like what are all the security risks available on the database, and it only it scans on a periodic basically with the period which sets, let's say for 15 days or it's like 7 days which sets, and it gives the report, so that it involves in continuous scanning of our systems, application, network weakness that could be exploited by the attackers. Let's say today it has generated the report that these are vulnerabilities available on the database. So next scan, it will give the report stating that these many vulnerabilities are like new set of vulnerabilities. Then we can compare the earlier report and this report, and we can see the reducing the vulnerabilities, or else we can prioritize based upon the security posture for the Azure. Like this is how, how to use the vulnerability management in Azure. So first of all, we need to enable within the Defender for Cloud. Then configure vulnerability scanning, set up vulnerability scanning on all the infra resources such as VMs, containers, and other resources. Using we do have a Defender for Cloud has been integrated with Qualys for this scans, and it gives all the vulnerability report. And we can see, I have mentioned about continuous monitoring, and we review all the vulnerability reports. Like let's say it has reported that this VM has a particular software which is a malware. Then we need to review that, and we need to see what is the potential impact of that, and we need to understand the risk of based upon the report, and then we need to prioritize and remediate the vulnerabilities based upon the prioritization, so that our environment will be secure enough. So we can, based upon that, it will give the, as mentioned, this improves the security posture, security score, so that we can track the progress of vulnerabilities as well. Now, where can we use these kind of things? This kind of vulnerability management. First thing is protecting financial data. Let's say a bank uses Azure to host its online banking platform. So if obviously that is a bank, then it should have all the vulnerabilities to be mitigated. By implementing this vulnerability management, they can regularly scan the systems for vulnerability and quickly addresses the issue. Let's say today there is an issue address for vulnerability management, which is really highly critical. Then there will be a separate team who works on this vulnerability management, and they help to protect the. They will fix those on the priority, so that this helps to protect the sensitive and financial data from the potential breaches. Securing e-commerce platforms, because e-commerce platform holds the customer data. So if there is vulnerability which can attack the all the resources, then they will address all these vulnerabilities to prevent the cyber attacks and compromise the customer information. Ensuring compliance. They need to like as mentioned, if there is a insurance complaint which has a critical data, customer critical data, then regulation like HIPAA, which requires strict security measures. Vulnerability management helps in identifying and fix the security weakness and ensure that it is compliant to HIPAA high presence, or else like PCI DSS, or else like NIST controls kind of thing. And protecting the intellectual property, because customer data is always an intellectual property. So let's say if there is any code stored in the data, or the code is also an intellectual property of a company, tech companies or software company. So by implementing vulnerability management, and if there is any insecurities available in exposures available in the code, then because of this vulnerability management, we can fix rather than move into production databases. Now, incident response and investigation. So as threat monitoring comes with hand in hand with incident response and investigation. So let's say it helps incident response help, and investigation helps in managing and addressing the security incidents. Let's say we have a security alert or security incident triggered to our IT team within the cloud environment. In the process of security threats, investigating them to understand their impact and taking appropriate action to mitigate and resolve them. and we'll think of a plan and tools respond very quickly rather than when something is going really wrong. Now, how to use this incident response and investigate how investigation in Azure. So we can enable Azure Sentinel. What is Azure Sentinel? Azure Sentinel is a cloud native security information and event management tool. So it's a SIM tool that provides intellectual security analytics and threat intelligence across all enterprise, and it helps in detecting, investigating, responding to the security threats. So when Sentinel combined with MDC, like Sentinel combined with Defender for Cloud with threat monitoring, then it helps in analyzing the resources, and if there is any potential attacks happening on the cloud environment or cloud resources, then it will detect and investigate, and sometimes investigate, and it responds to the security alerts as well. So we need to set up few data connector, like data sources from where the data is coming, such as resources, Office 365 third party. This allows Sentinel to collect all the data and security data across all the environment. We can create alert rules as well. Let's say if there is something suspicious activity or anomaly activity you want to get notified. Let's say if, like all of a sudden there is an access happen to the database from particular IP address. So we want to get this alert to our like relevant teams. Then this we can create these kind of security rules and alert rules in Sentinel and MDC, so that we can get this anomalous alerts as well. And as mentioned, monitor alerts and incidents. If there are any security incident or alert generated by Sentinel, then we can investigate and determine whether that is a true positive or else like false positive. Now, what are the use cases? Like, let's see where we can use this Sentinel. Okay, phishing attack. So if there is any phishing attack happening on the Azure resources, like let's say someone sent an email with the links on the backend. So Azure Sentinel will analyze these kind of attack, these kind of Azure Sentinel detects user logins or returns from multiple accounts. And security team that who uses Sentinel to trace the email origin and identify the compromised accounts and block them. So technically, like Sentinel is the resource which blocks and uses all the ML algorithm. They also have an automated playbooks to all this do. And ransomware attack investigation. Let's say if there is an Azure resource that has been hit by ransomware, then Azure Sentinel will respond the security team stating this software or is like illegal software, harmful software has been invested on has been detected on these resources. We need to take an action kind of thing. And unauthorized access detection. Let's say there is a database which being accessed on a, let's say there is a user who is trying to access the database. If user doesn't have an access to the database, when if he is trying to access from the unknown IP addresses, then Sentinel will trigger an alert. Then we need to act upon it. And if there is any data breach happens as well, then like unusual data transfer happens kind of thing, then security Sentinel uses all these things. Now, compliance and governance. So, compliance and governance in Azure, it involves in managing, enforcing rules, policies, and standards, all the things, to ensure that cloud environment adheres to industry regulations and best practices. And this helps organization to meet all the legal requirements and maintain security to achieve operational efficiency. Let's say think of a compliance and governance is a, let's see how we can use this in Azure. We can enforce policies as mentioned earlier. We can let's say we need to enforce few policies based upon the kind of industry we are in. Let's say if we are in HIPAA or we are into insurance policy, we need to enforce few policies on like let's say we are deploying it, we need to enforce few policies, so which will be like these policies enforce rules affect over all the resources, ensuring that they comply to standards and service level requirements. Azure blueprints. This service used to define the repeatable set of resources. Let's say we are defining deploying like we're deploying the resources repeatedly. Then we need to create a blueprint to adhere the standards patterns. Let's say we need to create a blueprint for that. Like, let's say if we are deploying this VM for 100 times, then we need to follow this set of policies for sure. So make sure that this follows policies, and we need to enforce Azure Security Center and Azure like a resource manager template. So it is always like good practice as a security compliance and governance policies. It's always good practice to follow deploy resource via template so that we can see what changes being made, who are making the changes and everything. So also it is when coming to compliance and governance, it is always you suggestible to use Azure Cost Management and Billings to see if there is any high spike in volume of cost when compared to previous earlier bills and current bills. And always try to use Active Directory for all the authorized users to having specified resources. Let's say if we have a resource which we database, so we need to use Azure Active Directory. So it is always suggestible use because we have a control over what's being done and everything. Now, let's see use cases. So, as a financial service compliance, let's say if we have a bank which is having resources on Azure, then it needs to have a PCI DSS compliance to handle the payment information securely. If it comes to healthcare, it used to have a HIPAA high trust. And if it's an educational institution governance, then it should have Azure blueprints and ARM templates so that it enforces the policies for data access and security. Retail industry, then it needs to follow GDPR requirements. Integration and automation. So whenever we are integrating resources, we always need to see always suggestible to do automation. Automation in the sense like whenever we are deploying something, it is all rather than going and creating manually the resources, it is always suggestible way to like use an automated templates that has Azure Biceps or it's like Azure Terraform or it's like uh, CI/CD pipelines, Azure DevOps pipelines for deploying the resources. So based upon this, like we have the track who has deployed the resource when that resource got deployed and everything. Now, how to use this automation in Azure? We do have a different set of tools such as logic apps, automations, functions, API management, and event. So what are logic apps? It triggers work when create a workflow. It triggers the build workflow and automate tasks like sending notification. Let's say if we need to send a notification post creating like a resource, then we can use a logic app to post creating a resource. It will trigger an email based upon the data provided. And Azure automation, like as I said, we need to use a bicep scripts or else like Terraform scripts to run books or playbooks to create the Azure environments and Azure functions. So functions are a serverless computing services which lets you to run the code response to the events. They can use to build small modular piece of logics to get triggered on the specific actions or conditions. So let's say action or condition. I mean, if this action happens, condition this to trigger. This we can define in functions. And API management. Azure has a API management service which helps to integrate and securely accessing the API. And event grid is integration helps us to create manage events for various resources and route them to the appropriate destinations, triggering the actions based upon those events. So use cases. Let's say we are doing employee onboarding. Rather than we need to rather than doing all the tasks simultaneously, multiple tabs, we can trigger user Azure Logic App automation. This task can be automated. Data processing and reporting. So let's say we have a data which needs to be processed and it needs to be reported. Rather than using manual work using Power BI and Excel sheet, this can be automated using the Logic App functions and even grid kind of thing. Incident response automation. So as mentioned, let's say if there is any security alerts get triggered, then we can see response based earlier responses, and we can train the ML algorithm of Azure, and we can see what's happening, and we can see the response automation and customer chat service chatbots like uh, OpenAI, which is a currently trending technology. So we can automate the responses using this chatbots, Azure chatbots, and everything, Azure bot services kind of thing. Hybrid and multi-cloud protection services in India. So Defender for Cloud, even though this is a product from Microsoft, it has the capability to integrate with multi-cloud management. That means it can integrate with hybrid cloud that combines on-premises infrastructure. Let's say I have my databases running on on-premise and other front-end working on Azure. And if I want to monitor, I don't need to go with a multiple vulnerability management tools. I have a single tool, that is Microsoft Defender Cloud, which manages which scans my both on-premise and hybrid on-premise and cloud environment. And multi-cloud management. Let's say same example. My databases are on Azure, and my front end code, my servers are on AWS or else GCP. And if I want to scan all the environment at once, I don't need multiple SIM tools. So we can use Azure Microsoft Defender for Cloud to scan and report the vulnerabilities. Now, this is how the score looks like. Let's say this is an Azure subscription, and we have multiple AWS GCP accounts. So it gives the security poster. As said earlier, it's a secure score. The better the secure score, the better our resources are healthy. So
Okay.
now, now,
Your Defender, right? Yeah.
yes, sir. Yeah.
Good.
So in market, I have multiple tools, like for this kind of cloud native application protection, for like IBM Courier, or else Alert Logic, or else like we have we have multiple simple. Then there is why should I go with the Defender for Cloud rather than going with other tools? So combining all this, I would say like integrated security across all the services. I don't need to go for like security alerts. I don't need to have a one SIM tool. For proactive approach, I don't need to have a one SIM tool. This tool gives all integrated approach and comprehensive threat detection and response. So as said, it triggers the security alert, and Sentinel can respond based upon the detection algorithm. And it supports multi-compliance regulatory supports, like as said, HIPAA, HITRUST, ISO, NIST, PCI DSS kind of thing. Extensive security coverage. It's both proactive and reactive. So proactive is something, it gives all the proactive is something which happens before the attack. So we can make sure that our environment is secure from vulnerabilities. And reactive is what something happens after the attack. So we can do the both within one tool, that is MDC, Microsoft Defender for Cloud. And because this is Microsoft product, this can be integrated with all the existing Microsoft ecosystem. So that is not only like it's not only limited to Azure. It can be integrated with all the Microsoft ecosystems, such as on-premise Windows environment, O365, Active Directory, all the things, and even multi-cloud provider as well, AWS and GCP as well. So this concludes my presentation.
Okay, good. So let us stop the recording.